As the military transport plane touched down on home soil, my heart pounded with anticipation. The endless stretch of my third deployment had been a series of tough missions and harder goodbyes. But the thought of returning home to Tammy had kept me going on the drive home. I pictured Tammy's beautiful face, the way her eyes lit up whenever she saw me, her crazy laugh that made me fall in love with her again and again. The house, our little sanctuary, beckoned me with promises of warmth and familiarity. It was there in our cozy living room where we shared our dreams and fears, where I had asked her to be my wife and where we planned our future together. Walking into our house, though, something was different. The scent of freshly brewed coffee, her signature welcome, filled the air, but there was an unfamiliar silence. I found Tammy in the kitchen. Her usual radiant smile strained. She didn't look at me. The house, which had always been a safe haven for me, suddenly felt cold, detached. The excited embrace, the shower of kisses, the passionate I missed. You were replaced by an awkward hug and a tight-lipped smile. The woman who stood in front of me, albeit the love of my life, seemed more like a stranger than my wife. She avoided my gaze. Her hands trembled slightly as she handed me the cup of coffee. There was an unspoken tension that hovered between us. Something that wasn't there when I left for deployment, sitting on our couch. I watched Tammy from across the room. Her every move of mystery to me. I longed for her to bridge the distance, to tell me that she missed me, that everything was okay, but she remained silent. Her eyes fixed on the coffee cup. The homecoming I had imagined was turning out to be a mirage, and I was left grappling with the sinking feeling that something was very wrong. We sat together across from each other, yet worlds apart. The silence was deafening. The coffee, usually a comforting ritual between us, felt like a cold comfort. Tammy took a deep breath, her hands clutching the cup like a lifeline mason. She began. I leaned in, ready to listen, eager to know what was going on. There was something I need to tell you, she continued. Tammy confessed. The words fell out of her mouth in a hurried rush, like she was desperate to get them out to lift the weight off her shoulders. She had met someone. She said the relationship had started while I was away. She said it began as a friendship but then transformed into something more. She had tried to fight her feelings, but ultimately, she had given in. Her words, cold and sharp, sliced through the room. I felt as if I had been struck, the air sucked out of my lungs. The taste of betrayal filled my mouth. I tried to comprehend her confession, but it felt like a nightmare. I waited for her to say it was a joke, a horrible, cruel joke. But she didn't. She looked at me, her eyes filled with regret, remorse, perhaps even some relief. But there was no love. Not anymore. My world, my safe haven, crumbled right before my eyes. The woman I had pledged my life to, who I thought was my partner in every sense, had been living a double life. Why Tammy? My wife had cheated on me. The warmth of homecoming had turned into the chill of betrayal. The days turned into weeks. Each passing moment, a stark reminder of the woman who had stolen my heart and then shattered it. The house echoed with Tammy's absence, the bed too big, the silence too deafening. There was a void where her laughter used to be, an empty space that once housed our shared dreams. Nights were especially cruel. I tossed and turned, wrestling with the images of Tammy with another man. Each imagined whisper, every stolen touch twisted like a knife in my gut. The sanctuary of sleep was tainted with the bitter taste of betrayal. I had two choices: to drown in my misery or to rise from the ashes. The easy choice was to succumb to despair. Let my heart take consume me, wallow in the mind of bins. But the soldier in me resisted. I had survived grueling deployments, faced death and uncertainty, but always emerged stronger. This was another battle. One that needed a different strategy. Revenge wasn't something that came naturally to me. I had always believed in forgiveness and second chance, but this was different. The wound was too raw. The betrayal, too profound. The thought of Tammy continuing her life unscathed while I nursed a broken heart seemed deeply unfair. A plan began to take shape in my mind. A plan for payback. It wasn't about anger or hatred. It was about justice. It was about making sure she felt the weight of her actions. I made up my mind. I wouldn't let her betrayal break me. I would use it to reclaim my dignity, my life. I knew what I had to do, and it wasn't a path paved with violence or intimidation. The plan for my revenge was to hit her where it mattered. Most her image, her reputation. Tammy was the town's golden girl. A shining beacon of charity work and benevolence. Her deeds, genuine or not, had earned her the adoration of our community, stripping her of that admiration, revealing the real Tammy behind the facade. That was my aim. This wasn't about public humiliation or a personal vendetta. This was about showing people the truth, about showing Tammy the consequences of her actions. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Newton's third law of motion. She had set things in motion with her betrayal. And now it was time for the reaction. I was clear on one thing: my plan wouldn't stoop to the level of cheap tricks or unfounded accusations. I wanted my revenge to be as honest as her betrayal was deceitful. I needed to gather irrefutable evidence. Something that would leave no room for doubt. Only then would my plan be foolproof. It was a meticulous task. One that required and resolve. As a soldier, I was trained for such missions, gathering intelligence, executing strategies with precision. This was a different battlefield. The enemy was different, but the objective was the same: victory, a victory, not for the sake of winning, but for reclaiming my lost self-esteem, for restoring my faith in justice. It was time to turn my pain into power, my betrayal into my comeback. Tammy's payback was in motion. I began the daunting task of gathering evidence. Betrayal had marred my relationship with Tammy, but it had not tarnished my bond with my friends. Dan, a brother in arms and a skilled tech whiz, agreed to help me. His trust, his unflinching support gave me the strength to embark on this bitter journey together. We delved into the world of digital footprints, tracing Tammy's actions, collecting conversations, photos, everything that could solidify my claims. I felt like an intruder invading her personal space. But each piece of evidence served as a stark reminder of her betrayal. Every discovered message, each unveiled lie was a slap on my face, reiterating the reality I was trying so hard to accept alongside the digital breadcrumbs. We sought testimonials from people who had witnessed her infidelity firsthand. Their accounts filled in the gaps, building a narrative that was impossible to refute. The woman I loved was morphing into a stranger with each revelation. Her image tainted with deceit and lies. It was a hard pill to swallow to see Tammy reduced to a series of cold, hard facts. But it fueled my resolve, hardened my determination with every piece of evidence. My plan was gaining strength, shaping into a tangible form. I was one step closer to exposing Tammy's deceit, to claiming my revenge. The pain was still there. But now it was accompanied by a sense of purpose and need for justice. It was time to turn the tide, to expose the truth hidden behind the lies. My mission was clear. My resolve unwavering. The game was afoot, armed with evidence. I felt a strange mix of victory and pain. Tammy's betrayal, so raw and real, was condensed into a folder. The woman I had loved passionately was now a dossier of evidence. Her lies and deceit lay bare. The pain was searing, but it was now accompanied by a resolve, a determination to see this through. My next step was to take this to the public, to unmask Tammy in front of the community. She had so carefully charmed James, a local journalist who had always been eager for a juicy scoop. Seemed like the perfect ally. I invited him for a drink, promising him a story that would shake the very foundations of our small town. James was intrigued, his journalistic instincts kicking in as he listened to my story, brows furrowing as he scanned through the evidence. He agreed to help, to give me a platform to expose Tammy. A silent pact was made over drained glasses and the promise of a headline story. The anticipation was building. The storm was gathering. Tammy's world, her beautifully crafted image, was on the verge of crumbling. I was leading the charge, my heart heavy but resolute. I felt a tinge of satisfaction of being in control. Yet it was a bitter feeling, like sipping a victory laced with pain. There was no turning back. Now the dice had been rolled. The pieces were in motion. It was a path laden with thorns. One that would probably open fresh wounds, but it was a journey. I was prepared to undertake a journey towards truth and justice. The countdown had begun. Tammy's reckoning was on the horizon. The day had come. The front page of our local newspaper and digital newspaper buried the story. Bold letters screamed the scandalous headline. Tammy's face staring back from the paper. James had done an excellent job presenting the evidence, weaving a compelling narrative without bias or sensationalism. It was all there. Her double life exposed for all to see. The town woke up to the shocking revelation. The Golden Girl, the paragon of charity, was revealed to be a cheat. The news spread like wildfire. The shock waves reverberating through every household, every coffee shop chatter, every social gathering. The woman once held in high esteem was now the topic of hushed whispers and shock guests. Her charity organization was the first to respond, distancing themselves from her. Their statement brimming with disappointment and shock. The trust she had built over the years was now a crumbling hay, her contributions tainted with her deception. Tammy, the beloved figure, was now Tammy, the home wrecker, seeing the impact of the unveiling. I felt something. Was it satisfaction? Was it victory? Possibly? But it was also a reminder of what I had lost of the love that once was. However, it was done. The truth was out and Tammy was facing the music. This was her moment of reckoning. A bitter taste of her own medicine. The mask had fallen and the real Tammy stood exposed. The storm had broken and it was time for the aftermath. Tammy's public image was in tatters. The woman who once charmed the community with her charisma and philanthropy was now the subject of scorn and disgust. Her empire of goodwill was a pile of ruins. Her name is synonymous with deceit and betrayal. On my end, the support was overwhelming. Friends reached out, their words filled with empathy and understanding. Even strangers came forward, offering condolences and support. There was a sense of solidarity, a community coming together in the face of deceit. Despite the circumstances, it was heartwarming to see Tammy, on the other hand, disappeared from the public eye. I imagined her holed up in her house. The one we once shared, dealing with the fallout of her actions. It wasn't a pleasant thought. She had to face the consequences, feel the weight of her betrayal, just like I had. The tide had turned. I had taken control of the narrative, turned my pain into a weapon of truth. My heart still ached, the wound still fresh, but I had made my stand, reclaim my dignity. Tammy's deceit was out in the open, her facade shattered. My mission was accomplished. The payback executed. I felt a sense of closure. A chapter coming to an end, the storm had passed, leaving behind the landscape of truth and consequences. It was time to heal, time to move on with Tammy's deceit exposed and the storm of revenge subsided. It was time for me to focus on healing. The scar was still raw, the pain still evident, but the satisfaction of seeing justice served offered some comfort. It wasn't about basking in her downfall, rather, it was about finding closure, about knowing that her actions hadn't gone without consequences. Why friends were my rock during this time, providing the support and companionship I needed. They offered understanding and, most importantly, the space to heal. Dan was particularly helpful. The bond we shared as brothers in arms, becoming the bedrock of my recovery. I took to working out, channeling my pain and bitterness into physical exertion. The rush of adrenaline, the sense of accomplishment after a grueling workout helped clear my mind. Each drop of sweat felt like shedding a bit of the past, purging the poison of betrayal. Slowly with time, the dark cloud of Tammy's betrayal started to lift, my heart still bruised. But it was healing and I was learning to smile again. I was emerging from the wreckage, stronger and wiser. Why revenge had served its purpose in necessary evil to bring out the truth. Now it was time for me to build a life beyond Tammy. A life of my own. The road to recovery was long, but with each passing day, I was getting closer to finding my peace. I have filed for divorce. It's just not final yet. My attorney